Hello, everyone. My name is Peggy Pratt. I'm the mother of three. I'm an entrepreneur, a realtor, a coach, a speaker, an investor. But most of all, I'm a first generation Latina in America. Welcome to my first podcast, Sin Permiso, the Latina Lifestyle. In my podcast, we're going to be we're going to be having different episodes about what it's like to grow up in America, first generation. We're going to be discussing a lot of the Latino ideas of growing up, ideas of wealth. We're going to be discussing building wealth in America as a Latina, as a woman in the line of work of business, right? Heading up against men, Anglo men, all kinds of different avenues that we have to go through to build ourselves, to prove ourselves regarding wealth. How we structure ourselves within organizations, how we see each other, things that we have to go up against, right? Hurdles, barriers, what it is to really have to hustle. We're going to discuss being a mom and balancing work life, children, and having time for yourself. What it means to embark on a spiritual journey, finding ourselves. We're going to discuss religion as Latinos, ideology about religion. We're going to be discussing beauty, a lot about beauty, the new things that are coming out, because that's one of my obsessions, trying to stay young, beautiful, fitness. Gonna have a lot of different people join us, all the lessons that we can help everyone obtain. We can discuss what we're going through. And I know that I'm going to connect with a lot of you out there that are going through various things, relationships, marriage, second marriages, third marriages, children, stepchildren, the blended family. So it's really going to be a podcast that's going to encompass a lot of these ideas, a lot of the things that we deal with from the day to day, from the personal to the business world, to retirement goals, to financial goals, to everything that we all can learn more about and discuss with others who have been through it and can shed some light and definitely have done it their way. Everyone has their own personal story, and this is the best platform, I think, to be able to share with all of you. So let's get started. My life. Like I said, my name is Peggy Pratt. I grew up in Boston, a few blocks from Fenway Park. Many of you, I'm sure, have been at some point in your life to Fenway Park. But I'll tell you, it was a real different Fenway Park when I was growing up. There was not so many buildings, not so many lights. We actually used to play on empty lots where those $1 million buildings are. It was a much quieter place, a much quieter time. I know it sounds cliche, but for most of us, my generation, 40 plus, it was definitely a much calmer and simpler time. I grew up on, we call it Peanut Butter Street, my family and I. It was quite an awesome dynamic because all of my family lived in a different apartment on Peterborough Street. Peterborough Street had its Section 8 housing, right? That was the opportunity that was given to young families to get up off their feet and utilize the Section 8 system for what it was really intended to do, give you a head start. My mom lived on the fourth floor of one of the buildings. I lived there with my mom. My grandmother, my abuelita, ya vivía en el primer piso. My aunt lived on two buildings over. She had a duplex inside of there. We were happy. Like, that was the best unit in the complex. Across the street on the first floor of 39 was my Uncle Gilbert. Above him on the third floor was La Tia Irene, who was my grandmother's sister. They're Irish twins. Irene actually has a birthday this Saturday, so quite excited. It's 100 years. La abuelita didn't make it to 100. She passed last year at 99, so I have good genes. That's awesome. Down the street a little more was my cousin Patricia. And on the other side, in 41, was my uncle. my Uncle Julio. So when I say everyone had an apartment on the street, I guess, I don't know, everybody, I don't know if you just got the hookup or they paid the management company, but everybody was on the street. So it was quite an awesome, um, time growing up where it was familia, right? It wasn't familia back in Colombia or in Dominican Republic or in El Salvador, but it was familia on Peterborough Street in Fenway. So that was pretty awesome. My mom was a single mom, the usual story. My dad left when I was 4. Never saw him again till later on in life, and that's definitely makes for another juicy podcast. We can get into that one. But growing up, like I said, with all my cousins, I didn't feel like an only child, right? We had everybody to play with. Then at 10 years old, I do get a member of the family. My little sister was born, who, in usual Latino familias, la hermanita, hay que recogerla de la escuela, you got to prepare her our food, you got to take care of her. So, I guess being la mamá figure while mi mamá andaba trabajando was probably what instilled in me this motherly personality where I want to nurture, los quiero cuidar, les quiero ayudar, motivate them, help them, to excel, and that leads on to other aspects of my life, even with my own real estate team, and I make jokes that my sister's my first kid, and that's true. So moving on, as a young woman, I knew I wanted to do something. I wanted to make money. I was hyper motivated. I just didn't know where to start. I tried it all. A los 15 años, trabajé in a clothing store, right? And every week they would ask me for my license, right? That I was 18. And every week I would say I was bringing it in the next week. And then I'd get fired. Then I'd have to find another clothing store to go work on. Because obviously, they're not going to let you work on commission until you're 18. So that basically means I've been working on commission since I was 15 years old. No fue fácil, but that's what I did when I was younger. From there, while I was doing a business school stint, which was 1 year cramming an associate's degree in 1 year, um, I opened a clothing store, so I would go to school in the day. Then I would work on opening my clothing store, what I needed to do, and open it on the weekends. I was also bartending at night. Then I realized, hey, there's this empty bar in Kenmore Square, right near Fenway, of the bottom of an Asian restaurant. I said to the owner, hey, I want to build a business here. Let's do something. Let me bring these, let me start a night, right? So I started promoting a night. While I was underage and going to New York, sometimes on the weekends, growing up really fast, I saw this bar that I fell in love with. Se llamaba Los Años 60. So this 60s bar, right, was super uber cool. And I don't know, maybe, my past life, I must have been alive in the 60s. I started this bar in that bar next to that Asian restaurant in Kenmore Square. I said to him, listen, give me 5% of the proceeds. Remember, this is 18 years old. I couldn't even drink. Give me 5% of the proceeds and I'll make my money as a bartender, right? So I started running this night, Los Años 60, which was super successful. But while I was running the night, I was having my clothing boutique. I had a radio program, Radio Bemba, right? I used to play Fania Salsa, Radio Bemba, Celia Cruz song. It was quite interesting because at the time, mi español no era así. It wasn't the best. So it was a lot of obstacles in practicing el español viendo el noticiero, watching the noticias. So meanwhile, I'm trying to find myself. I have a boyfriend. We get together. I like him a lot. I'm not trying to marry him, pero él necesitaba los papeles. So I said, hey, why don't let's do a bargain? Let's barter here. Yo me caso contigo, and you pay off my associate's degree debt. We made it work. Next thing you know, we're opening a restaurant together, right? In the meanwhile, while we're doing the restaurant, I was actually doing rentals at a real estate office down the street. Dude, I don't know, in my past life I must have been Jamaican because I always had 4 jobs. That joke, I had 4 jobs. I was trying to find myself. So we end up opening this restaurant. I tell the rental office, I'm gonna take a break from real estate and rentals because I'm going to embark on my own restaurant. I had some experience from the Kenmore Square, Año 60. We opened the restaurant, him and I, hard work, long days. We did very well, so much so that it got to the point where I could go back to real estate full time because the restaurant was running itself along with him. I go back to real estate. I start selling homes, which at first I was very apprehensive because it was easy to do rentals, but for me, selling a house was a pretty big deal at 20 years old. I do well in the sales. I hook up with my then lender loan officer. We open up a second restaurant in another location, which was fabulous, but it was short lived due to some licensing issues that were there before we started embarking in that journey. So I end up divorcing my husband at I want to say, what was I, 22 years old, right after our first son Joshua is born. And I just throw myself into real estate. I forget about the business of the boutique, the restaurants, and I just throw myself into real estate full force. I drive around with Joshua in the back seat in his baby chair, showing homes. Yep, Mama has to sometimes carry him in and show him, bring him in to look at the properties. So it was quite a struggle at the beginning because you're working off commission. I had my savings from the restaurant, but you're working on commission, so it's not easy. 2 years later, Josh was about 2 years old, I want to say, when his dad and I do get a divorce. Then I meet Eddie. I started going out with this really hot looking Boricua named Eddie. I did my first flip. I purchased a single family that I converted into a two family. Eddie helped me out. We would plaster and paint the walls until 1, 2 in the morning, literally flipped with our own hands. At the time, I was 23 years old. I made $130,000 on that first flip. I paid him out for all his help in that flip, bought a few properties more. So that was my real estate journey. I did forget to mention that I had my first home with my first husband at 21 years old. At the divorce, I know a lot of you would say, why didn't he just leave you and the baby with the house? I had to pay him out. I had to pay him what he had put in. So here I am, 23 years old. Fast forward, I've got my first property, my two family that I live in. I just did this flip with Eddie, made 130,000. I buy two more properties, so now I've got three properties, and him and I are together. Um, a lot of things occurred. I found out that he was not in line with the same idea, with the same place that I was going. And it was a really tough decision because it's really difficult breaking up with someone when you're in love. But I did it because I thought, I have to think with my head and not my heart. I had a 3-year old. Um, so that was a tough decision that I made, but I don't regret it. A couple of weeks later, after breaking up with him, I go to lunch with one of my best friends who was a guy. And needless to say, a month later, him and I were dating. 3 months later, I had my engagement ring. And within that year, we had bought our first house together. And we got married September 4th, 2004. Um, my husband and I built an empire through real estate, through the real estate business, through the lessons, the ups and downs, and even through the crash of 2007, 2008, we were able to basically dig out of that hole with our own hands and buy investment property little by little, building our portfolio. Hard work. This man really toiled, worked very hard, and I want to say we were able to turn it around and get out of that mess. Um, I have two children with him. Sophia, my princess, was born in May of 2005, and Juan Jose, my crazy 14-year-old JJ, was born 2 years later in the same month. So real estate has been really good to me. It's been a lot of hard work, um, but it has its rewards. Being a Latina, I've had a lot of struggles in the real estate world, but I will say this: I was lucky that when the time that I began, there wasn't this many Latino brokers and realtors and agents out there, loan officers. So la comunidad me ayudó demasiado. It really helped me that I spoke Spanish and that the community looked for me. And although I had all these other businesses that I had dabbled in y bien loca tratando de hacer una cosa y la otra, nothing gave me the satisfaction or the pleasure that real estate did by selling to my community, a mi comunidad, giving them their tips, telling them how to do it, what to do, pushing them, motivándolos. Hey, no tienes que alquilar. Compra tu casa. With that money that you're going to rent that property, buy your home. Inspiring them, que ellos supieran que sí se puede. Nothing has filled me as deep as that has. Therefore, I'm involved in various associations and organizations that have to do with home ownership. One of them is NADIP, the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals. I'm proud to be involved with that organization that inspires and motivates others and shows the true potential que nuestros latinos podemos alcanzar. There's all kinds of, there's CEOs, there's people who've done startups, there's all kinds of entrepreneurs out there, Latinos como nosotros. And I just feel that this platform of this podcast is going to open up for all of us to give us insight. And beginning con mi historia, that I'm here to prove it. Soy Latina. I did it. I've been through 2 marriages. I have my children. It wasn't easy. No había papá. It was nothing. Came from nothing, right? We all know that started from the bottom. Now we're here. Well, that's many of us. That's many of our stories. Again, I want to let all of you know how excited I am to embark on this journey that's going to tell not only my story, but the story of many others like me and like you. Y sin permiso, right? We're just going to be candid. We're going to put it out there, put it on the table. And I'm super excited to be able to delve deeper into these topics that I've touched today in a much deeper way in the upcoming podcasts.